And we're rolling.
All right.
Hello, Erika Rowell.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am really good.
Good.
Good. So, folks out there, let's see if you guys notice anything that Erika and I look a lot alike, huh? Isn't that weird?
Yeah. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. It's definitely in the eyes,
Mm-hmm.
in the nose, in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Eyebrows.
Eyebrows for sure. Yeah. Let's see. I have to pull this up. Mine are, they're different now, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, Erika, this is a very special blog today. Erika is my birth daughter. And so we thought it would be cool to jump on and kind of tell our story because it's ended up in a really, really excellent place.
Mm-hmm.
Today's Easter. She spent the Easter with my family. That was cool. I think you made my mom's year.
That's awesome.
So, it's cool. So we've been wanting you to come down. We've been down a couple times before.
Yeah. You've been down, I think, 3 or 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mary Margaret a couple times,
She came once, just you guys.
Yeah,
and
just
then,
us.
And then she came in Summer and Sam.
Yeah.
Last year.
Yeah. And then we met halfway once.
Yep.
Yep. So what I thought we'd do, it's an interesting story with a great ending, but I thought we'd just kind of tell the whole thing from beginning to end and just kind of go through it.
Yeah.
And maybe some other folks can learn a little bit. I will say this. There are a lot of stories of birth families meeting, and they don't always go as well as this one is.
No, I feel like this is rare.
Yeah, I do too, for sure. So let's just get right into it. So I was way back in high school. I went to the same high school forever. I went to kindergarten, elementary school, high school, with all the same people. Mm-hmm. And when I turned 15, my house burned down. And I had to leave all my friends and move to Buckhead. And I started a school called Northside High School. And at Northside High School, I went from knowing everybody to a somebody to a nobody. Mm-hmm. I didn't know a soul. I went to that school for a whole half a year, and I really didn't meet anyone. Then, over the summer, I got this terrible, terrible case of acne. It just covered my entire upper body. Mm-hmm. And I had to go back to school like that. People thought I'd been in a car wreck.
Oh,
it was just terrible. And I started taking this awful drug called Accutane. Mm-hmm. And I got off Accutane on my 15th, right at the end, right before my 16th birthday, and everything went away. And I said, this is a great opportunity to change schools. So I went to North Fulton High School, and I went from still really not knowing anyone at Northside High School. I really had only met a few people. I met everyone I know at Northside High School I met after I left the school, which is the craziest thing. Yeah. But I met through my friends at North Fulton. So I went to North Fulton, and I was the new kid. And I met a girl named Kristen. And we started dating. And I've got a funny write-up about our interactions, but, and it was kind of my first real girlfriend. Yeah. And we met. We dated for 6 months. And it was during the summer. And I remember her calling me and her saying, hey, I'm late. Like, I'm really late. And I'm like, oh. and I'm thinking about my life choices at this moment, right? Yep. And I'm thinking, let's see, I'm still in high school. Both of us are. I work at Captain D's. This could be trouble. Like, this is, oh boy. So at the time, there were billboards all over the place for, do you think you're pregnant? Call this number. And so we called, and we got together. I picked her up at her place. It was storming like crazy. Like, it was tornado storming and just trees bent over. And I picked up Kristen, and we went to this Are You Pregnant place. And what they did is we showed up, and they immediately split us up into separate rooms. And each counselor talks to us, and then they bring us back together, and they make us watch this video on abortion. And it was pretty radical.
I'm sure.
But it definitely had the desired effect. And so you do the test, and you get together and you watch the video, and then they come together and they say, it's positive. To which Kristen says, oh, thank God. She goes, no.
Oh, no.
She goes, no. The test is positive. You are pregnant.
Yeah.
To which Kristen just went into a, just like. So they left us alone to talk, and it didn't take long at all. I remember sitting on that couch and Kristen saying, I want to have the baby. I want to have it. And I said, you got it. I said, so what are we going to do? And she goes, I can't keep it, but I want to put her up for adoption. We didn't know it was her yet, but
Yeah.
I want to put the baby up for adoption for sure. So we kind of went to the car, drove to my mother's house. Now, folks, back in 84, 5?
I was born in 86.
So this is 85 at the moment. So back in 85, there was no internets. There was the yellow pages and a rotary dial phone. So at this point, what I wanted to do is I said, I want to have a plan together before we tell the parents. So let's have a plan together. And then I wanted an open adoption. So I call this the 3 phone call miracle, is the way I call it. So I have a rotary dial phone, I have a yellow pages, and that's it. No internet or anything. And so I make the first call at my mom's house. Kristen's on the couch, just kind of going between laughing and crying.
Yeah.
And I call a lady in the Georgia office, and she says, well, Georgia is a closed adoption state. So if you do it here, it's a closed adoption, which means you will never see her again. You hand it over, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I don't want that. I want to open adoption. So she said, well, the closest place that does open adoption is South Carolina. So why don't you call the South Carolina office? And she gave me the South Carolina number. So I call the South Carolina number, and the lady says, yep, it's open adoption. She explains to me open adoption. Now, I'm 10 minutes into making phone calls. Second call, 10 minutes in. She says, there's a woman, I think her home is full, but she runs an unwed mother's home her name is Trudy Paget. And she runs an unwed mother's home, and why don't you give her a call? I don't think she has any room, but just call and check. That's phone call 2.
Okay.
Phone call 3, we're 15 minutes in. I call Trudy Paget. Trudy picks up, first ring. And I tell her who I am. I explain to her our situation. And she says, how sure are you that you want to go through with adoption? And I said, oh, no, we're 100% positive. I said, listen, my mom isn't going to help me raise a baby. Kristen's mom isn't going to help her raise a baby. Mm-hmm. Like, this has to be an adoption. And Trudy said, I have parents that just went through this whole process, and the woman decided to keep the baby. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they're up for going through it again. And I said, listen, when you talk to them, just impress upon them the fact that that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, even if Kristen and I said we want to, she doesn't have a job. I work at Captain D's, and neither parent is going to allow it. So it's going to have to go through. Okay, I hang the phone up with Trudy. That's 30 minutes. We're 30 minutes into this process. 30 minutes later, right at the 1 hour mark, I get a call back from Trudy Paget that says they'll do it. Story, they just put their faith in God and said, mm-hmm. We'll do it. We've got a deal. And I said, so we got all the information. Now she needed to talk to parents and all that, but we reserved. We did just a oral, hey, reserve the room and all this. So we did it up, and now we had a plan, and the deal was now we could tell the parents.
Right.
So the next day, I was at Captain D's, and Kristen told her parents. And I remember her calling me at Captain D's and me just going, oh, my God. What? You've told them? And they want to talk to you.
Oh, no.
Right? I'm sure they do.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I'm like, okay, well, time for me to tell my parents.
Yeah.
So I told my dad first, and then I told my mom second. And my mom was terrified that Chris and I were going to get married. And I said, no, I have a plan. Here's what's going to happen. It's all set up. Trudy Paget, this whole thing, open adoption. Because for me, it was a no deal. Closed adoption was not a deal. And I'll get to that more later. But so Kristen tells her parents, and they asked me to come over. I want to tell you something. The longest drive of my life.
Oh, my God. Yeah, because you were the guy.
I was the guy.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm sure they weren't that happy with you.
And as a father with daughters, I was the guy that got their daughter pregnant, who's going to walk into the lion's den and talk to them. And her mom and her stepdad, they couldn't have been more kind and sweet. And but Kaylin said, I want you to consider closed adoption, and you can't get married. And I said, no. I'm going to go to Rock Hill, South Carolina. I'm going to move there. I've already found a place. By this time, I had found a place to live. I found a Captain D's to get transferred to. Now, I want to tell you how stupid it is now that I look back on it. How comforting must it be for a mother to hear that the father of her daughter's child is living his dream by getting a job at Captain D's.
A big transfer.
A big transfer.
Big transfer to the Captain D's.
Exactly. So basically what she said was, no, you're not. No, Kristen, she's going to go there. She's going to have this baby. She's going to put up for adoption. She's going to come back to school. Nobody's going to know whatever happened. And you guys are going to move on. Meaning, like, you guys aren't dating anymore after this whole process. So, and that's exactly what happened. So she went off to Rock Hill, South Carolina. I stayed at school. And, we broke up. And for me, it was just really traumatic. But we stayed in contact. And then, and I picked her up a couple times and brought her back to hang out with friends. By this time, she had told everyone she was pregnant. So there was there's no hiding it. Mm-hmm. There's nothing worth at that point hiding. So, I get a call. I'm at my friend Thomas Leverett's house, and I get a call. Kristen's in labor, and I'm like, "It's happening! It's happening!" Mm-hmm. So I call my mother, who can't leave until later in the day. I drive over and meet Kaylin at their house, and I ride up to Rock Hill, South Carolina with Kaylin, with Kristen's mom. And I was the only guy that ever showed up for a birth at the Unwed Mothers. I was the only father that ever showed up, and which surprised me. But so when I get there, she had gone through a really long birth. Your parents now will be very surprised that you gave your birth mother a hard time.
I'm sure.
Right?
Shocker.
That you came when you decided you were ready and not when anybody else decided, right?
Right.
So now they couldn't get you to feed. So when the next morning we went in early and you were sitting there with Kristen and I got to meet you. Do you remember? No.
It's a vague memory.
It's very distant memory.
Very distant.
So I got to hold you the first time. It was so amazing. And we've got pictures of that. Mm-hmm. I've showed you those pictures of me holding you. That's the first time I saw you, Polaroids. And the nurse said, "Well, nobody's been able to get her to eat." So I got the bottle, and I was holding you, cradling you like this. I got the bottle, and I just got a little milk on it. I dabbed your lips with it, and I just held it in front of you. And I was like, if she's anything like I think she is, she's just waiting to do it when she wants to.
Yep.
And you waited, took about a minute and a half, and then you went and you ate your first bites. Mm-hmm. So I hold that very near.
Yeah, I love that picture.
Yeah, that's a cool picture, isn't it? Had a big head of Elvis hair back then.
You had so much hair, so much dark hair.
It was impressive.
Yeah.
I know. God, had I known.
You're right.
That immediately upon leaving there, it would all fall out, which is exactly what happened. It is. If you see my 18-year-old picture from that picture only 2 years later, It was totally gone. So,
Wow.
okay. So I'm holding you, and my mom is there. Finally gets there that night, so we come in together in the morning. I'm holding you. Mom gets to hold you, and I spent, maybe an hour and a half with you, just holding you. And then I go in the side room, and that's where the lawyers are. And lawyers have paperwork for me. And I read through the paperwork, and I'm so impressed with myself at this point as a young 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid at this point. I read through the whole document, and it was closed adoption. And there was politics behind the scenes that demanded it be a closed adoption. And I said, I will leave here with this child before I sign these.
Yeah.
I won't sign it. I will walk out of here with this child. The only way we're going to do this is if this is an open adoption. And they took all the paperwork back and came back out, and I read through it. And it already was prepared. They were just going to try to sneak a closed past the dummy 17-year-old, which at that point wasn't happening. So I signed the paperwork, and we'll see if I can get through this next piece. I'll get through it. So I signed the paperwork, and then I go, at that point it's final. And your parents are literally in the other room waiting on you. And so I get to go in and hold you one last time. Yeah, that's a tough one. But so there was two different memories. Always these conflicting emotions going on. Mm-hmm. One was, this girl's got a chance at an incredible life, but she was definitely not going to get with us, with Kristen and me, or any whatever kind of crazy existence we could cobble together for you, right? And here are parents that have been trying to get a kid, and they were in the church community, and Trudy just couldn't go on say enough positive things about him. So then the moment comes where you hand you over.
Yeah.
And you walk out, and it's like, wow, 18 years is a long time to go. So that was quite the moment of leaving, because at that point it is. There's no internet, and there's no Facebook, and there's no 23andMe.
No.
There's none of that stuff, which we have a really funny story about that one as well. Mm-hmm. But there's none of that. So you walk out, and it is just, and the only thing that I prayed when I was with you, the only thing I said was, give me the chance to explain to her why. So if I can get that, then anything else is golden after that. But if I can get the chance at least one time to sit there with her and tell her that, then life will be good. Mm-hmm. Then that's all I could really ask for the situation. That everything else would be whatever really at that point you wanted or needed from the two of us. So with that said, now I drive away, and Kristen gets another hour with you, and then she hands you to the lawyers, and the lawyers take you in the other room, and you meet two of the most wonderful, awesome people you could ever hope to meet, much less call your parents. Right?
Yeah.
And then, from that point, do you remember that?
Still a little fuzzy.
Still a little fuzzy.
Yeah.
It'll come back to you.
Yeah. I'll have to meditate on it.
So, I'll jump just for my sake, and then I'll turn it over to you. So if we jump ahead, when Summer was born, when there was a moment where I got an elevator with Summer. So kid's born, and you're with the nurses and the doctors, and you're in a room, and the family's there, and there's always someone around you. And then there's the moment where you leave the hospital room, you go to the elevator, and the doors close, and you are all alone. Mm-hmm. And I thought about you, and I thought about your parents at that moment when the doors closed, and I thought, it's no different. At this point on, it's no different.
No.
Birth parents or adoptive parents, there's no difference. Those doors close, and you're they went through the exact same motions that I went through, which was, we have a baby. Yeah. This is real, and it's all on us. And I remember when that happened, I got this great comfort. I was like, that there's no is she really our kid? You know, I'd always thought about it from the parents' perspective of how they felt about it. And it was that time that I got this comfort that said, oh, this is their kid. Like, there isn't there's no anything you need to qualify it with birth, adoptive, any of that. Like, this is their kid from the moment those elevator doors closed. So there were a lot of those little moments through this whole process where, you know, especially after Summer was born, that I could experience actually being a parent, that I could sort of live through your parents' eyes with you and say, oh, this is how that was.
Yeah. Was it weird? Did Summer look like me as a little baby? Was that weird?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you did, yeah.
So holding her was probably surreal.
It was.
Yeah.
It was surreal. It was something. And then, so we'll get to how crazy it is that you and Summer look alike.
Yeah.
It's insane, especially as babies.
Mm-hmm.
Up to the point that Summer's mother thought you were her.
Yeah.
And wondered who these strange people around her were.
Yeah.
Who are these people? I don't know any of them. Who are you? When did you get that dress?
Yeah.
I think that's what she said.
Yeah.
Like, Mom, that's Erika.
Yep.
What are you talking about? That's not me. So, yeah. So, okay, so you pick it up from the elevator out.
Okay. That's a clear memory. My first one.
So you were raised knowing that you were adopted.
Yeah. I always knew. I don't remember like a specific time that I was told. I just always knew.
Yeah.
So it was never weird to me. I never really realized it was different until I started going to school and telling people. And they were like, what's that? And I'm like, I mean, you know, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It's just my life. It's just part of who I am. So it wasn't as common, I don't think, back then as it is now. But
yeah, it definitely wasn't. I mean, if in school, if there was a kid who was adopted, it was like we had this beautiful girl at our elementary school named Julie. I won't say her last name, but she was just beautiful. I remember finding out that she was adopted. I was like, huh. Oh, you know, you're like, oh, there's some loss there. Are there really?
Yeah.
There's really not.
No.
There were times with Summer when she didn't. It took her a long time. But she'd say, "I hate you," and I thought, I wonder if when Erika says that and feels that way, if she thinks it's because they're not her real parents or they're not her birth. You know, they're her adoptive parents. And it's like, no. Every kid feels that way about every parent, period.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that never crossed my mind. And people would ask, so, you know, are they your step parents? Is that, I'm like, no, they're just my parents. Like, why is this so weird to you? It was just so normal to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I went through the same, like, emotions and rebellion as any other kid.
Yeah.
It never really had anything to do with being adopted. It was just normal teenage stuff.
Just being a crazy teenager.
Mm-hmm.
All of us, you know, in our way, trying to figure out who we are and what our path is. And, you know, I think, you can add that complication in there. But, you know, as long as it doesn't define you in your mind, because that's really all it is it's in your mind. But as long as it doesn't define you, you know. But so how did your parents' family treat you?
They treated me really well. My mom's side of the family, very much so. They were very accepting. I think they saw her through the process of finding out she couldn't have kids and then the struggle of trying to adopt. So they were really excited when I came along. And my dad's side of the family was hit or miss. He's not very close with them, so it was never really important to me what they thought.
Yeah.
But my
good.
mom's one of 8, so it was a big family, and all my cousins and everybody just treated me just like anybody else, which was really nice. I couldn't ask for more than just to be treated like and get in trouble like the rest of everybody.
Right.
So
it's like part of the family.
Yeah.
Which is what you were. I mean, at that point, you've outside from those probably the best moments of your life were the hour of me holding you. Outside of that, just fresh in your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was, these were the second best times you'd
Right.
ever had.
Right.
But yeah, no, so that's awesome. And they were, so think about this. Up to this point, if you think about this whole process from us finding out Kristen was pregnant to you're getting to know this family, it was less than an hour
Yeah.
from not knowing anything to these people saying, this is our daughter.
Mm-hmm.
This is our fate. This is our daughter. We're all in. In less than an hour, it was done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is,
That's crazy.
yeah, that's God himself
Yeah.
guiding this process and guiding you to these folks
Yeah.
without any doubt.
Mm-hmm. And I think about it from my mom's perspective of probably felt like eternity waiting. And then everything just happened to like fall into place.
Because she didn't wait 9 months. She
That
waited
quick.
She waited 18
Yeah.
to 20 months from the first one that didn't work out to this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for it to happen that fast is
Yeah.
just, it's crazy.
So on our end, I got, I think I got a picture of you at 1 month.
Mm-hmm.
And then no one, I didn't get anything else from then on. And Kristen got pictures for a couple of years, and then I didn't find that out till later. See, when I went through this, I picked up a book on adoption when all this was going on when I was 16. And the first thing I read was immediately, step one, women who found out they're pregnant, step one, immediately terminate the father's rights. Because if you want to get an abortion or you want to put the child up for adoption, you don't want this person to have any say in anything. And I remember closing the book and being so disheartened, like, this is going to be a real battle for me because my goal at that point and my whole outlook on life was I will meet her one day.
Mm-hmm.
And all these roadblocks just everywhere, and so through this whole time, it was, I would talk to parents about it because I was the guy that had a kid in high school,
Yeah. Yep.
How about your daughter starting to date that guy? That was,
Yeah.
I had some really difficult conversations with some parents for sure. But I'll tell you this, my friends in high school were so amazing. Like there was no making fun of me. There was no second-class citizen. There was none of that. Everybody was so supportive and so engaged and so kind of into it from the whole thing. It was really...
That's really awesome. 'Cause
Really
at that
is.
age, I mean, the immaturity is pretty prevalent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody, it was just, and they were all kind of emotionally invested in it, and so uplifting for me. I had everyone I could go to and talk to about it, and had two friends, Whitney and Jennifer, were two of my buddies that really got me through it. Preston Saunders, John Summer, who you met, Summer's namesake, Eric and Peter, Michelle Day, like all of these people just sort of wrapped me in this cocoon through this whole thing, all the way up from even coming back from the adoption and no one let me be home alone.
Yeah.
It was so emotional. I mean, that is, God, I can't explain it to you.
I can't.
What it's like.
I can't imagine.
That ride from the hospital of like joy and the ultimate loss you could ever imagine.
It's such an adult thing to do
Yeah.
at such a young age.
I always said it's a heavy thing to lay on a 17-year-old that they're not the most important thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
To lay that bit of knowledge on them at 17, like, you're not ready for that.
Yeah.
It's like people would be like, we're going to go, we're going to go parachuting, or we're going to go riding bikes blindfolded down Beaver Highway. And I'm like, I can't. I can't. Like, the worst thing for it would be if you were to go look for me and find out, I died 20 years ago.
Rollerblade,
Yeah,
free rollerblading
free
accident.
rollerblade. Exactly.
How disappointing.
Well, that's disappointing.
Yeah.
So there was that. And then I guess, did you know any other kids that had been adopted?
I don't think so. I remember in 4th grade is the first time I really remember people finding out or knowing, like in school.
Yeah.
And no, I really don't ever remember knowing anybody else growing up that was adopted. It was everybody. I went to a really small school, so everybody was like, wow. Like, even at that age, 4th grade, I was, 9, 10, and they're like, tell me about it. Like, what is that like? Or what does that mean? And, yeah, it was, I don't know. On one hand, I felt really cool. And then on the other hand, I was like, am I ashamed of this or am I, like, proud of this? So I kind of went back and forth.
Yeah.
But eventually, I'm like, this makes me different than everybody else.
Yeah.
So I was fine with it.
And it's not like you had 2 gargoyles at home and thought,
yeah,
why did this happen to me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You had this great family at home. You're like, wow, you really won the parent lottery.
I mean, yeah, everything has just worked out great.
Okay, so when you turned 18, I hit all the adoption sites. Because back then, still, I mean, the internet had just come into play. And I papered all of the sites, and I thought, here it is. She's 18. Phone call is going to come any minute. Any minute. This is happening.
Yep.
And nothing. 18. Then it was 19. Well, you know what? I'll step back in before that. When I was 18, the first Father's Day after you were born, I got a Father's Day card from my family. And I thought,
wow.
I didn't know what to make of it. Like, it was heavy. It was heavy. Like, I'm not really a father. But I get the sentiment, you know, but nobody in my side knew what was it? Like, on your end, you were like, is this good? Am I ashamed? Am I proud of this? Like, what is this? It was kind of the same way on my end. It was like, do we give him a Father's Day card? So they just erred on the side of, you know,
caution.
Here, have this. We're really not sure about this, but it just feels like we should do something, you know? And that went on, I think, for a couple years, and then everybody sort of stopped. But
yeah.
One thing that did happen through all those years was every holiday you were talked about. Every Father's Day you were talked about. So any major family thing, we had brought you up, and we'd talk about you and wonder where you were and what you were doing at this point. And so that was cool. So you were always kind of a part of all that.
Wow.
Even then.
Yeah.
Every Christmas and all that stuff, there was time to talk about Erika. As we didn't call you that at that point. It was a different name that we had, but we won't bring that up.
Yeah.
There's no need to get all into that.
No.
Get all into the sauce.
Minor details.
But yeah, so all of that, and then I have Summer. Now I have a secret, you know. And the struggle was, do I tell Summer? Like, what do I tell my kids? And I thought, I am so, I have this huge loss in who I am and my identity. The last thing I want to do is introduce that loss to my kids. And at that time when Summer was born, to say, hey, oh, by the way, you have a sister out there that you're probably never, ever going to meet. Like, who does that? It's such a conundrum at that point of, you know, like there's no book out there. There's no book that says, oh, here's how you handle your birth family, you know, that you've put up for adoption. Here's how you handle this with your kids and your girlfriends. I've had girlfriends react very poorly to it.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just a swirl of emotions. But so with Summer, I didn't tell Summer. We're gonna wait until, you know, you had reached out. Once you had reached out, everybody, both kids would know. So that was really interesting, and how to deal with that.
I think as girls, it's different because as a girl, you want to know. You do have that imagination, and you're like, it would have been hard for them probably because you didn't know if you would ever meet me, and
right? No,
you can't promise them anything,
right?
So I get that.
Yeah. So, all right. So, I got a lot of stuff, a lot of hard time about when I filled out the adoption registries.
Mm-hmm.
And so I backed out and pulled everything off of them. It's like, all right, all right. So the way open adoption is set up, for those of you who don't know, there's a lawyer that sits in the middle. So there's a firewall in the middle of the birth parents and the adopting parents. And basically, if they ever want to get in touch with me, they can go to the lawyer, and the lawyer would reach out to me and then go back, do kind of that back and forth. So there is a firewall there. Now, it's not very accepting. I remember calling them when I was 18. They were petrified that I was like going to try to legally find my way to you. And I said, that's not what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm just want to make sure everything's still, like the agreements are still what the agreements are. And, a light that just went out. Oh, that's wild.
It's like it wants to come back on.
Right? Okay. Hold on. I wanna put you on.
Okay.
Let me check. Let me see if I can make it work.
Okay.
Our first technical difficulty.
Seems about right.
Yeah, right?
The way things go.
Wow. Is it back?
No.
No. All right, so
Well.
we will be without light. It's all right.
Okay.
We can deal with it.
Yeah. Maybe it'll come back on.
Maybe it'll come back on. All right, so where were we? I may have to. Yeah, I'll have to turn it off.
Okay.
Okay, back. All right, so when did. All right, so 18 nothing, and then. So what was your thought process on when you decided?
I remember when I turned 18, I was at Arby's with my mom. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I talked to her and I said, I mean, what do you think? Like, do you think this is like that I'm ready for this? And she's like, I mean, I can't tell you that, but I think you just need to pray about it, think about it, figure it out in time. Don't rush into anything. And so I was like, I think I'm going to wait. I know I'm going to do it. I think I'll just know when it's right. And I did. One day I was like, okay. I woke up. I'm like, today's the day. And that was it.
And you were 24.
24. Yep.
24.
24. Yeah. And she had on a piece of paper, she had the names that she had gotten from the lawyer. And I think he emailed them and she printed it out and she folded it up and then just waited. She gave it to me and I think I stared at the paper for like 3 days.
Oh, wow.
And then I'm like, okay, well, we got Facebook. Facebook was like the biggest thing then.
Yeah.
No Instagram, no nothing else. So I'm like, I think I can do this on Facebook. And that was that.
And so with a name with Lynn Pridgeon, it took you days to find me?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. There was a sea of it. So
to go through. So I pretty much came up immediately.
Pretty much. But I didn't know what I was looking for. So, but I went on, I looked at a couple pictures. I saw Georgia, and I'm like, okay, this has got to be. Once I saw the picture of you up close, picture of Summer, I'm like, this is it.
Yeah.
And it was I'd never, ever seen anybody that looked like me before.
Yeah.
So it was just, it was just mind blowing. I was laying in my bed in my first apartment I had and like for hours going through, went on YouTube, watched you singing.
Oh, wow.
Looked at pictures of the girls. It was crazy. I'm like, is this really like all my life I've waited for this? And then here we are.
Here we are.
Yep.
So your friend requested me, and I accepted. So back then I was managing bands, so I was just mass accepting friend requests. So the story I tell that I would like out there, it goes like this. It's a little bend on what actually happened, but it's the way I like to tell it. So I was going through Facebook and I found a face I recognized and a name that I did it. And you look at the name, and the first thing I thought was, that's Summer. That's not. First of all, I'm like, Summer has blonde hair. I think you had blonde hair. Then I'm like, Summer has blonde hair. Like, that's Summer. I thought there was a mistake had been made. And I look at the name, and it's Erika Rowell. And I look back at the picture, and I look at the friend in common.
Oh.
And there was only one friend in common, and it was the birth mother. And I thought, and I was doing a training video at this moment. So the camera was on me when all this happened. And I looked at it and was like, it's her. Like, it's happened. It was surreal. I called my mother. I called my sister. And I sat there for an hour on one picture and couldn't click through. Like, I could not. Because it's the moment of reckoning, right? It's the day of reckoning. It is the end result of this decision that I made, you know. And I'm going to find out what the results of that decision are. And I'm going to have to live with it, you know. And it's either going to be really good or it's going to be heartbreaking. And there's probably not going to be any in the middle, in between. So I click through the first picture. And the very first picture I see is you sitting on your dad's lap.
Yep.
And I thought, this is going to be all right.
Yeah.
This is going to have the ending that I hoped it had, because I always thought about me. When Summer was a baby, I'd always think about you and think, I hope her dad played with her like this. Or thought, you know, it's just always correlating back to maybe what you had gone through at that age and what you had been like at that age and all of that. So I could think through all those questions and all those moments with Summer that I had almost sort of flashing by me, all boom, boom, you know. I could put myself back there in all those moments at once and think, yeah, she was getting that, you know. So it was so comforting. And I have friends say, well, didn't you get jealous? Didn't that make you mad? Like, you just haven't been in this position.
No.
If that's your first thought.
It's totally different.
No, that was the greatest thing that I had ever seen, you know. So, yeah, so I went through every picture that you had. Yeah. All of them. And you were all of it. You were everything I'd hoped. You were first, you were beautiful. You were hilarious. Oh my God, you were funny. Just, I cracked up so much going through it. Like, oh my God, what a great personality. And then you were sarcastic. You had a ton of friends. You liked to party.
Yeah, then I definitely did. Nope, 24, living it up.
Of course, doing what 24-year-olds ought to do. But one thing that you could tell from how affectionate you were with your friends to your posts and all that was that you were just such a sweet, kind-hearted girl. And that's always one thing I worried about was, you know, just don't let her be bitter and angry and, you know, all of that. And there was none of that in there. It was so good. Okay, now comes the question. Am I good enough for her? You know, now comes the rejection fear.
Yeah.
In the game, the dance of what is just enough to let her know that the door on my end is wide open, but not enough that this door hits her in the face and she runs away. You know, it was such a dance early on, and I've said this to you a million times. You handled this masterfully. Like how you handled it, especially on my end, how you handled me and sort of guided me through this process was just wise beyond your years at that time. It really was. So first thing that happened was I sent you a letter.
Mm-hmm.
I sent you a message. And I won't let myself go back and look at any of that early stuff.
Yeah.
At the time also, I had a terrible Adderall Ambien addiction. So, you know, I could, with everybody else, I was really all over the place. But with you, it was really sobering. It was,
Yeah.
yeah. So I tried to be very careful
Mm-hmm.
at those times. But you were very patient because you were not jumping on and immediately replying. You were taking your time and
Yeah.
thinking through it. And I was so impressed with that because it's so easy to be, just have a knee-jerk reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell that you were sitting back and thinking your way through this and not letting yourself make a wrong decision. What was that like? So we were been friends, what, a couple weeks, I guess, before I saw it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like that was my very first real adult decision.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas yours was giving me up for adoption, and then came my turn to be like, okay, I need to, like, because, you know, at the time I was bartending, going out all the time. I was impulsive. But this was the first time I was like, okay, I need to be a little grown up. Like, this is a big deal.
Right.
So
You get one
this
shot
is
at
what
this.
I've waited for my whole life.
Yeah.
So I was really careful, but I had the same fear, the same rejection fear. I'm like, okay, what if I'm not what I mean, it's pressure, a lot of pressure, you know?
It is, yeah.
It's like, what if I'm not what he imagined I would be? So I had to, like, take my time with that and process it. And I'm like, okay, I knew I had a message there.
Did you wait to read it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Like,
I did some with yours too.
so I'm going to wait. And then I've always felt when I knew I was ready. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, okay, I can do this. So it was a very step by step, allowing myself to take the time process. Because it was, I mean, there's no guidebook. You don't, I mean,
Yeah.
nobody can tell you what to do or how to handle it. So
Yeah. So I'll tell you what I got most of my life. Whenever I would talk about this moment of meeting, I would get very two distinct messages, especially from mothers who had the world figured out already because they were mothers.
Mm-hmm.
And I call them by gods because it always start with, by God, you are her real father. And when she meets you, she's going to know that. And I'm thinking, that is not the answer that I'm looking for, right? And then the other one was, by God, you are not her mother. She doesn't care about anything about meeting you. You need to walk away. This is between her and her mom. You can only mess it up. I mean, I got that advice over and over, back and forth, back and forth. There was no positive message in there that said, outside of coming from my family, that said, you shouldn't even pursue this, you know. And I remember a friend, I'll do the quotes, the quotes that said, why would you even accept a friend request from her? You're the father. She doesn't want to talk to you.
yeah.
You know, you should do the right thing and just deny it. And I'm like, it's like everyone had these really strong opinions on my end. There were very few people that were willing to think this through.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the voices for me were my stepdad, Bob, and my mom and my sister.
Mm-hmm.
That was my very closed group. Greg Lee, you know, one of the greatest guys ever put in this world, and his wife Nicole, they were really big for me through this whole thing. And I'll tell you, another person who I really leaned on was Lanny West. And Lanny is one of the world's most beautiful people, sweet, sweet guy. And he's the husband of Leslie Fram, who back in Atlanta was, you know, a superstar DJ and personality. Mm-hmm. And someone I adore and love to death. And Lanny had an estranged son. I won't tell much of Lanny's story, but he knew kind of what this process would look like. And him and I had a couple of really big conversations. And one conversation with him gave me the confidence. It was like, It was the first really, from someone not a family member, really good, solid advice that was, one of the biggest ones was, you take your time, you go at her speed, and you take one very small but sure step at a time. And if it's not a sure step, then you don't take it. Then you wait because you've got time. This isn't something that you can, if you rush through, she's going to go running way away from you. So and that was, but it was such good advice. And Lanny was so, I think I reached out to him recently just to say what a huge part that he had played in this. But so it's funny all the people God will drop in your life at the right time, at the right moment when you need to hear a message. And Lanny was there with that.
Yeah.
That huge message for me. So what were some of the questions you needed answers to? Or did you even have any?
There were a lot, but I mean, I think they just kind of popped in my head. I feel like I collected a lot of questions in my head throughout my life, and then when it came time, I was like, what do I need to ask, you know? So I wanted to know who I looked like. That was first and foremost, because it's strange to grow up not looking like anybody. So I wanted that. I wanted to know, I don't think I would never wanted to know why, because I always knew why. So I wanted to just hear the other side of it, the experience, like, what was this like for you? I wanted to know if you guys had kids. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
What you did. I mean, I've made up all kinds of scenarios. One time I was convinced Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt were my birth parents. I did all this research and the timing didn't add up, but clearly.
But yeah, well, there was a time I hoped they were my birth parents as well.
I just, I mean, just the everyday life.
So when you hit my Facebook page, you knew exactly who you looked like, right?
Yeah. It was
like boom. Okay.
And I remember showing everybody that was like my friends and with me on that journey at the time, just showing the pictures, and they're like, wow. I'm like, I know. This is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't wrap your head around it. Looking like somebody, to me, was just the craziest thing.
It was the first time in 24 years that you realized you looked like somebody.
Yeah. That was the craziest thing for me. And we have such similar, like, looks.
Yeah, mannerisms. Yeah.
And I love that. I mean, it was, even just looking through, like, your Facebook that on the first day, I'm like, wow. Just the music, the taste in music, the everything was. So that was, like, my number one needing answers, which was answered pretty immediately.
Yeah, right. There it is.
Yep.
There it is. And and I think, for a girl to realize she has a sister out there.
Yeah.
Who looks almost exactly like she looks.
Yeah. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Summer was, let's see, how old was she then?
15?
Yeah.
Yeah, 15.
So I could see a lot of myself, younger self in her, looks-wise.
Yeah.
So that was awesome.
So we'll get to that. We'll get to that. We'll talk about when we met. So, okay. So I had a secret. I've seen you. I've gone through your page. I've cried with my mom and my sister. I have this next quest. Just I know she's out there and we're now connected. Was every day to make sure that you hadn't unfriended me. And every day I woke up and I'd go to Facebook and I would type your name in and I'd just be like, okay. And I'd look and I'd say, all right, we're still connected. It's still okay. But it was, I need to unburden myself with this secret, and I need to go talk to Summer, and I need to do it immediately. And I had a book that I made for Summer, picture book, and I had gone through this scenario for her for so many times. And I remember I got there, and in the picture book, I'll describe to everyone what the picture book is. It's pictures in the hospital room of me holding Erika and of Kristen there. And um, just all these pictures that we got from that time, and pictures of Kristen in high school and us when we were dating. And so I could tell her the whole story. And I handed her the picture book, and I said, listen, we need to talk, and I'm coming over. So I said, just be in your room, because I wanted to do it with her in her room. I didn't want to do it in front of her mother. And I walked in her room with the picture book, and I set it down, and I said, I want you to look at this. And she looked at it, and then she saw me holding a baby, and she saw Kristen and I together, and she had met Kristen not too long before that. She didn't understand what our connection was, but Summer picked up that there was a very serious connection.
Yeah.
And it was confusing for her. And I saw her putting the dots together, and she's like, I said, so I want to tell you the story. So I told her the story that I told you. This kid that left a school where he knew everybody, you know, the same thing. And I took her all the way through it, all the way through the putting you up for adoption. And she just was a deer in headlights and soaked it all up. And I said, so you have a sister, and her name is Erika. And then I pulled my laptop up, and I showed her your Facebook page, and we went through all your pictures. And she says to me, who else knew about this? And I said, did Opa know? Did Charlie know? Does Aunt Michelle know? Does my mom know? I'm like, honey, everyone knows. I'm the only one that doesn't know. I said, well, Mary Margaret doesn't know. Yeah. And so that was her number one thing, was how, Dad, you and I were so close. Like, we're so close. How could you? So she was hurt by the fact that she didn't know. But the next thing was, like, you were pretty cool. If you were going to go nail someone as, hey, oh, by the way, you have a sister now that you're 15. And she's 24. It was a pretty cool thing to look through. You're on motorcycles, you're partying, you're with friends, you're hilarious, you look just like she does. And that was her thing. It was like, oh my God, she looks so much like me. So it was such a cathartic release to tell her and unburden that secret. And then came the task of telling Mary Margaret. And I called Mary Margaret up and started to get through the story. And she goes, so are you saying that I have a sister out there, and then you put her up for adoption, and now that you've reconnected? I said, yeah. And she goes, okay. I'm like, any questions? Nope.
That
Seems about
right.
About par for the course there. And I'm like, yep. And she's like, okay. And I don't think she probably gave it another thought.
Yeah.
So, and then, I had to tell the ex-wives that here, she's found me, just like everyone knew at some point would happen. And, but yeah, so now comes a new phase. See, I had spent 24 years of my life looking for you. And a big part of my identity was the search and the wait and the hope. And it was really weird because I lost that identity and everything changed. And it was real confusing for a while of like, it's almost like when you have a big event you're waiting on. And it's almost like the waiting and the getting there is the cool part, and then it goes by so fast. Well, for me, it wasn't a go by so fast. To me, it disappeared on me because it didn't work out. Now it was this tenuous dance of how do we do this the right way, and how do I not run her off, or any of that. So it was a real interesting sort of how do we negotiate through this. And you were the freaking master on getting us all through it. So we go through, it takes about a year for us to coordinate and talk our way through it to where we meet.
Yep.
And so we met, and you had been talking to the birth mother as well, texting back and forth.
Yeah.
I don't think we had any phone calls.
No.
Yeah,
no. All messages.
All messages. And then, so I hadn't heard your voice or anything until I met you. So we set up and we drove to Rock Hill, South Carolina, where you were born. And we met at a restaurant there.
I don't remember what restaurant it was.
I don't either. I remember telling them the story and the waitress crying on the phone with me and breaking down on the phone and saying you were going to have the best room and you were going to have your privacy.
Yeah, we did have a good room.
We had a great room, and they took really good care of us. And everybody kind of poking their head in and just like, this is what's happening in there. it was cool. But so I remember walking in and getting to see you the first time and hug you, and it was just like, it was something. It went by so fast.
It's a blur.
It was a blur.
Yeah.
So on that meeting, let's talk about that meeting. You brought your parents.
My parents, Cam came.
Cam
my
came,
little
your
brother.
little
He
brother.
was
He was young.
almost not even 2. Yeah. So, and
Mhm.
they came and they were totally on board. My parents were
That's so awesome.
ready to go. Yeah. So
That's so awesome.
we made that drive, and I think the guy I was dating at the time was there too.
Yeah.
And
We can gloss over
yeah,
that.
it's not important.
That's not important.
But the drive there was just
Yeah, what was that like?
complete silence.
Really?
I just couldn't even speak. My stomach was in knots. I mean, it's like you imagine this day forever, and then it's here, and I was like, what am I doing? Am I really doing this? Like, is this really? I mean, I didn't sleep at all the night before, so we pull in the parking lot, and I'm like, none of us knew like what you guys looked like. I mean, we seen pictures, but to see somebody in person is different. So my parents get out of the car, I get out of the car, and then I'm like, oh my God, this is it. And Kristen was outside, and we all hugged and went inside, and I'm like not breathing. I'm just like a ball of nerves.
Yeah.
I really was the whole time.
Really? Even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It didn't show. You didn't see
really?
You didn't
Well,
see
yeah.
it. Yeah.
But I mean, it eased up a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's indescribable. It's just, people have asked me, like, what was it like? And I'm like, well, imagine the most awkward, uncomfortable thing you've ever done. It was like that, but in a good way.
Yeah.
It wasn't uncomfortable in a bad way. It was just nothing. I mean, nothing prepares you for that.
No.
You don't.
Again, there's nobody that you can go to and say, so what was it like when you did this?
Yeah.
You know,
So-
what was it like when you went to the Army? What was it like when you got your first? Yeah, there's nothing
Nothing.
to prepare you at all. So I went with my sister.
Mm-hmm.
And I named my sister as a buffer, but also, to be there. So for me, driving up there was just, I was so nervous and just like, you don't get a do-over on this one, and you don't get there's no, hey, let's meet for the first time again.
Yeah. No.
Next week and see if we can get it right next
Yeah.
week. So for me, it was, plus I'd heard your voice on video, but I had never, what are the mannerisms are so huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are the mannerisms? Like, what are the, and it was, for me, it was so weird. It was like looking at me,
Mm-hmm.
like you looked so much like me. I was like looking at me. I remember that's the first thing. But when you came in, we hugged and, I remember hugging you. I thought, oh my God.
Yeah.
I used to have, I'll see if I can get through this. I'll see if I can get through this. But I used to have these dreams. I used to go back to where you were born and sit on the bench. I'll get through this. Sit on the bench, and I'd sit there. And I used to have these dreams that you would sit beside me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be so mad when I woke up. I'd be like, oh, man, didn't happen, So here it was like, well, this isn't a dream. This is actually going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And after having all those dreams, I always had this dream that we met, and then we would walk. It was always by a lake or something, and I'd tell you the story, and always had this fantastic ending. Never had a bad ending. And it was like, there's a very good chance this could not be that ending that I had hoped for.
Mm-hmm.
And we had we had a variable there that I had never counted on, which was the birth mother, which was Kristen, being a part of it, which I had wanted her to be. I'd wanted you and her to have your chance.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different from this story, but I'd wanted that chance. So that happened. I know we had tried to meet before, and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
So she was there. Shell was there. So I was struck by two things. A, just how sweet and how funny and how much you looked like me. And I was struck by how much I immediately loved your parents. And I spent so much time talking to your dad and your mom, and they were just the best people. You know, and I think I spent more time really talking to them than you and I even got to talk. And I was just so happy. Like, they were so, you could just tell what genuine, real, honest, good people they were. There were no airs. I'm going to imagine they had to be a little nervous as well.
Probably. I'm sure my mom was. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. One of my goals was to make sure they knew that I knew my place.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can say one thing through this whole process, that I'm real thankful for is I've always known what my swim lane was. I've always known kind of where I fit, you know? And so important to me, your relationship with your parents. And I can imagine in this situation, there's some amount of saying, look, this is some especially with your parents, this is our family, right? This is our thing here. We'd love to have you be a part of it, but you're on this side of the wall. You're not on this side of the wall, you know? And you're certainly not now going to step in the picture and be her dad. And I never felt like that would have ever been the case. But what I wanted was just to make sure they knew that I was very deferential to them.
Yeah.
And if there was going to be, she has a dad, she has a dad, you know? So I've always known kind of where I thought I fit in this. I don't know if that ever showed through or not.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think we've kind of figured it out together.
Yeah, we really have.
Yeah. But yeah, I never felt any pressure from either side of like, this is how things are now. It's always just been, okay.
Yeah, let's just
see where this fits and figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you got to do.
So yeah, and then I had a very weird moment when it ended, and I got in the car and I drove away, and I had a really big breakdown because I went back to that kid that drove away,
Yeah.
and I thought, well, I see her again, you know, and at this time it's different. This time there's finality here. Because I've met her now, and it's like, if it goes away again, I'm done. Like, there's no other chance. So I remember getting back, and for days I wouldn't check Facebook to see if we were still connected. You know, it was like, so I remember checking and just being like, okay. But you went dark for a year. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So that was, for me, that was like, wow, I'm still connected and I can still, and if this is what it is, I'm okay. Because I got to tell you the one thing I wanted to tell you, which was you weren't thrown into the garbage.
Yeah.
You know, what happened with you came out of love. It came out of two people who were doing the absolute best they could and wanted you to have a fair shot at this thing. You know, like, and we had found parents that we felt could give you so much more. Oh my, what a disaster it would have been if we tried to raise you. It was such the right thing to do. You know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was a while. It took a while.
Yeah. I think, you know, and then I had, other things going on in my life, and I just needed to process, figure out, okay, what's this next chapter of my life going to be like? And I just kind of pulled away and went through my emotions and felt what I needed to feel, and then got it together.
Yeah.
Which has always been my way of dealing with things at times.
It's my way, exact way too.
So
my way is to disengage, regroup, and then re-engage.
Yep. That's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
And I always knew that you were going to be a part of my life from this point on.
Yeah.
I just needed to feel what I needed to feel about it, and
Yeah.
then figure it out as I day by day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, everything is, there is nowhere to go to sort these feelings out.
No.
Nowhere. Not a web page, not a book, nothing.
Mm-mm.
It is really like landing on the moon every step of the way. It is, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
So I think for me, again, it was kind of feeling through this whole thing was the pace will be set by Erika, and only Erika. And if there's any frustration or fear on my end, that was my problem and my thing to deal with, and not hers.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I could do was push you away if I tried to push anything. So, again, I think for me, just knowing what my lane was and knowing where, not only where kind of a fit, but kind of knowing that this was your game, and just being willing to say, you know what, I'm gonna trust this process, and that, I wanted to end up at a place that you were comfortable, whether that meant we never spoke again or what. I just wanted to end up somewhere where you were fulfilled and felt like you had gotten exactly what you needed. As hard as that would have been for me, if your decision was all of a sudden I wasn't friends with you on Facebook anymore, that would have been what it was. That's a tough one. I'll tell you, that's a tough one to come to grips with.
Yeah. Nothing prepares you for that.
No.
Yeah. I think we were both at that point in time dealing with different demons in our lives.
I was headed to rehab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that had a lot to do with it too. Just outside things going on and trying to figure that out. So it's heavy stuff to all of it.
What's your advice to someone who's sitting where you were?
I think my biggest thing would be take your time and don't put too much weight in other people's opinions. I think you're always going to feel what's right.
Yeah.
Because, I had everybody telling me every which way, don't do it. What if they don't want you? You're going to ruin whatever life they have now.
Oh.
And I finally just had to, listen to myself, block all of that out. So, yeah, I think that would be my number one piece of advice. Your heart will tell you when it's time and the right thing to do.
I think I would give my advice to, because I have two different sets of advice. To parents, my advice is this. Your birth daughter or child owes you nothing. And your part in their life is what they want it to be. And if they want to meet you and they want to reconcile why this happened and they want to find out a little bit about who they are and they want to go on their way, then you have to be okay with that. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, but it means you have to be okay with that. That is, your duty is to give them exactly what they need from you. And that's it. And if you can go into it with that mindset, then, it's a very selfless thing to do. But again, what's a more selfless act than putting a child up for adoption?
Yeah.
So they don't owe you anything back. You gave that right up. Any right to them, you gave up when you gave them up for adoption for the right reasons. And so make sure they get what they need. My only requirement for God, if you could ever have one, was that I get to tell her she wasn't thrown in the garbage, that this was love and this was why it was done. And anything over that, that's all I asked for. It would be, would be a bonus. I didn't expect it to go like it has gone.
I didn't either.
This is way better than anything I accepted.
I feel so blessed. It's worked out way better than I think anyone would have thought it could. It's almost doesn't seem real sometimes how well things kind of fell into place.
Yeah. Now, for the child, on your end, who's seeking to meet their parents, I would say this: know who you are, be comfortable with who you are, and be in a spot where nothing. You don't want meeting birth parents to define you,
Right.
because to be honest, the majority of the time you will be rejected.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of the time they will not want to meet you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next large percentage, they're not going to be anything you want in your life. They're just not. They're going to be people that are like not what you wanted. And it's going to be disappointing for you. So you need to be prepared for rejection. You need to be prepared for them to not be anywhere near anything that you want in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't let that define you. You need to be defined. You need to be wholly mature. And you need to be ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they happen to be, you know, someone that benefits your life and brings something to your life, that's great. But you got to be ready for the other side too.
Yeah, you
and
have to be.
You can't say, "Oh, my life is a mess. I'm going to meet my birth parents. It's all going to be better," because they could crush you. And I have friends. I have a friend from high school that was adopted, and she met her birth parents, and they were awful.
Yeah.
And she couldn't shake them for years.
Mm-hmm.
They just came after her. They wanted money. They begged her to borrow money, and it was a terrible experience for her.
Yeah.
So know who you are, and be well set in who you are, and then go for it.
Yeah, because you have to have some sort of self-worth.
Right.
It can't be tied up in that, because it could go very wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always good. And I think in some sides of this that I've dealt with, my ego and my self-worth definitely took a blow.
Yeah.
But I think I was okay because I figured that out about myself first.
Yeah.
So that it wasn't as devastating as it probably could have been had I not taken the time first.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Like I said, you were wise and mature beyond your years in doing this whole thing. And then, so yeah, and I think just any time we interacted, for me, was to make the most of it and let you know the door was open without trying to pull you through it, you know, and just over time I got comfortable with the fact that I'm still, like, I was so fearful that I would go into Facebook and you wouldn't show up anymore and you were gone, you know. And once I got over the fact, it was like, all right, well, look, we're going to be in each other's life. That's always going to be there now. Now it's, what is it going to look like? And for me, you know, I was running a marathon and not a sprint.
Yep.
And I was cool with being able to watch you grow. And boy, you have grown. We've been in each other's life now for 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, we've both come a long way in 9 years, haven't we?
We really have.
Yeah. I mean, from my addiction problems and
yeah,
you know, I had my music career ended with the addiction problems and trying to figure out who I was and you know what my place was, and going through addiction for the first time, kind of trying to get through that, and us, and I had teenage daughters, you know, that is
never easy.
Woohoo.
Yeah,
never easy.
Mm-mm.
No. And then, so a really nice thing was to watch you and Summer's relationship develop outside of all of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's been really nice for me too. It's I can't explain it. I guess it's just that connection.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the unconditional love that you just have. I mean, it's like when I first met her, it's like we knew each other forever.
Yeah.
So it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's nice to see how it is playing out.
Yeah. And you guys are very, very much alike. in every way. We were just commenting on Mike and watching Mike and Sam,
Yeah.
your two boyfriends, interact and how much alike those two are.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Yep.
So that's really cool. And you
Yeah.
guys have the same spirit, that same really sweet, strong but kind and caring spirit about you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, it's really cool to see that.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And it's also cool now to be able to, when I talk about my daughters, to be in a comfortable enough space to include you in that,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And, because, I mean, that's the way I see you in a very different way.
Yeah.
Like, you're a daughter in a sense, but you have a father, and that father is probably a better man than I could ever hope to be. He's such what a great guy. I want him to adopt me.
Never know.
Never know, right? The door's always open
Yeah.
at the Rowell house for a new adoption, right?
Yep.
They adopted your little brother.
Yeah. They adopted him 23 years later.
Yeah.
After they adopted me.
I'm telling you, less than an hour, God had you two matched up way before I started, way before Kristen and I even knew we were pregnant.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys were matched up from that moment. It was like, okay, here's the thing. If you lived by my will, this wouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to make sure that this girl is well taken care of.
Yep.
And I think that's such a cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Mom was there with me when you were born. So I remember how meaningful it was to her the first time you guys met. So several years ago, you came in and went to see me play at Smith's Old Bar.
Yep.
And we had breakfast with Mom and the family, and you met Summer then, right? Was that the first time you met Summer?
I think so.
I think it was.
I think so.
Yeah, that's right, because I've got a picture of us sitting at Smith's,
Yeah.
us together, you, me, and Summer.
Yeah.
That's the first time you got to meet her.
Yep.
So you got to see the band play,
Mm-hmm.
and that was cool.
It was.
For me, that was like so surreal to be up there and look out and see you watching us play. It was like, whoa. And it was for most of the staff at Smith's Old Bar, too, because they all knew the story, and
Yeah.
we're all watching you watch me.
Yeah.
And the big guy, the door guy, was like all teary-eyed, and still, every time I play, he asks how you are. He's like, how's Erika doing? I'm like, man, she is doing so good. So you guys met, and you got to meet Mom, which was one of the most meaningful things in her life that's ever happened. She's always felt, she was there when you were born and got to hold you, and, one of 4 people in this side of the family one of the only other person on my side of the family that got to meet you when you were born. So, and then you, like I said, you have made her year by spending Easter with us and staying at our house with her. And I'm telling you, you would have thought the Queen of England was coming to that house. I'm in the driveway washing it in the rain. And Mom's yesterday, she's like, you guys keep laughing about that, but there are things that won't come out if you don't scrub it. So that was pretty cool. So she was just, thrilled. And then, Michelle's met you quite a few times, and she was there the first time we met. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it's been, I guess you feel the love.
Yeah, definitely. All around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So it is, it's good. So it's been quite a ride.
It really has. It's been a good one.
Yeah, it really has.
Mm-hmm.
Getting to know you, for me, has been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It really has. And it's been, like I said earlier, it's more than anything. I even my wildest dreams on this didn't come close to what it's actually turned out being.
Yeah, me too. I'm so thankful.
Yeah. And it's really good. And I think if my high school friends were to talk to you, they would say, and my just close buddies would say, here's a guy that never stopped talking about you.
Mm-hmm.
For 24, now 33 years. From the moment you were born until now, there was one person that we knew, was going to meet his daughter he put up for adoption. Okay, so let's fast forward. let's say we did a closed adoption.
Mm-hmm.
I got tricked into that closed adoption like they tried to do. And let's say that happened. You and I, we did. It wasn't 23andMe. What was it?
I think it was.
Was it 23andMe?
Or was it Ancestry?
It was Ancestry.com.
Ancestry.
Okay. So we both did an Ancestry.com thing together.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say together, it means I paid for her kit and sent it to her, and then I paid for my kit, and they sent it to me, and I did the swab and sent it in, and she did the swab and sent it in, and we signed up. And about a month later, we get a message. About a month into it, we get our results.
Yeah.
And we find out that you and I have the same results. It's just a couple of reversed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But we're the same everything, but a couple of reversed.
Yep.
And then about 2 weeks after that, what happens?
And then we get a message.
We get a message
Yeah.
that says, hey, you have a daughter,
Uh-huh.
or they said you were my mother or my daughter.
Yeah. I think about that too. How crazy that would have been.
Are you right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have known stuff like that would exist now? So
Certainly not back when there wasn't even the internet and
Right.
we did all this. Yeah. So that was cool. So we would have found each other
Yeah.
eventually
yeah.
and would have gone through this. It would have, but if people want to know, does it work?
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, listen, it took 2 weeks before them to go, listen, these
Yeah.
people are strongly related. Like,
No denying
there
it.
is no denying
Yeah.
that at all.
It wasn't like this is possibly. They're like,
Yeah, there
this
could
is-
be the
this is
slight. They were
definitely-
like, dude, you guys are very
Definitely.
closely related.
Mhm.
The apple fell right at the root of the
Right
tree.
there.
On this one. Right. That was crazy. Well, cool. Well, we wanted to do this. I'm so happy that you agreed to do this.
Yeah,
And
me
I know
too.
you actually brought it up,
Yeah.
which I would have never brought it up to you.
Mhm.
And I thought it would be really cool to tell her story. There's a lot of people like us out there.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people I know when I've told the story that a lot of people have been really touched by it, how it's turned out. And it really is a Disney story.
Yeah.
So I wanted to tell one quick story. Right before you found me, I was almost found out. I was watching that episode of Glee with Summer. So I'm watching an episode of Glee. In this episode of Glee, Summer's like 14 years old at this time, and this episode of Glee comes out, and it is the lead character is going to meet her birth mother.
Yep.
And Dad is watching it with her. No one warned me that this episode, there was a possibility of this being in this episode. And through the episode, I fell apart, hysterical, and had to leave. I just said, I got to go home. I can't stay here and keep watching this. And I left and went home. Had such a really visceral reaction to that episode. And when I sat down with Summer and showed the picture book, she stopped in the middle looking at it, and she looks up at me and she goes, "That's why you fell apart at Glee." I said, "Yeah." And she goes,
Oh, made sense.
she goes, "Oh." She goes, "Dad, that was the weirdest thing I've ever seen." She's like, "My dad fell apart
Glee.
at Glee." And there were times through my whole life, we talked about Oprah earlier. There were
Yeah.
Oprah moments where I just fall apart at Oprah. I'm like, dude, I can't have Oprah on this TV
No.
because she's going to tell my life story again. And if there's anyone around, I'm not going to make it
No.
through it.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny.
That is funny. Summer just thought you were
Oh,
sensitive.
yeah. Well, I am that guy. I go
Yeah.
to movies and I cry at movies.
Yeah,
Like, I can't.
me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I have a condition. Like, I can't not do it. It's not like I want to get into this. I want to feel this movie. No, I have a medical condition, ladies. I had a news reporter take me. We went on a date, and she was a reporter, Beth Jordan, with Channel 11 News years ago. And so we went to My Life Was Out. That's how long ago it was. Michael Keaton and Nicole Kidman.
Okay.
And, well, we're getting this Tuesday night preview. And all that's there are the Rodney Hoes of Atlanta, or the people that come out and preview movies and do all that. And everything's fine until he comes to a day where he's going to die. Now, mind you, there's no one in this theater. Me and Beth and like 3 other people up front and someone behind us. and he starts to die. So the whole story is he gets 6 months to live, and his wife is pregnant. And that's 9 months, so he's never going to meet his child. Well, 6 months into it, he says to her, you know what today is? Today's the day I die. And they hug, and then his sickness starts hitting him. And by the end of the movie, I'm weeping. And I'm like, why would you bring me to this movie? Who does that on a first or a second date? Who brings someone to this movie? And she kept looking at me, and I'm like, don't look at me. Don't look at me. Like, I have a medical condition. Don't make fun of me.
Right.
So yeah, so no, it was rough. Yeah, so she put that together. It was like cool. So, well, at this point, I've made it known that there's no bigger fan of your parents than me.
Yeah.
They're just what amazing people. There's no bigger fan of you than me. You are just a miracle and amazing, and you will be in my life forever and ever.
Forever.
And I can't think of anything better than that.
Yeah. Me too.
So very cool.
Yep.
Yeah. I love you very much.
Love you.
And thanks for doing this. And
Yeah.
this
Thanks
was
for
fun.
having me.
Yeah. Next time we'll do a little lighter subject
Yeah.
matter, and we'll talk about. We were talking about haircuts. So tell everyone a little bit about you before we jump off. You are.
I'm a hairstylist in Charlotte. Been doing it. I've been at the salon for over 4 years, and I love it. It's a passion. But anytime you deal with people, there are different.
Tell them about your very first haircut.
Very first haircut I ever did was right out of school, first job, first day, first client. And it just so happened to be a lady that just did not have it all together. And she screamed at me in the middle of the salon. One of the GMs was there. I started to cry. I left. It was intense. And then I was questioning my entire life, all my choices, sitting outside on the bench. That was my very first experience, and then I think it gave me thick skin really quick.
It'll do that.
Yeah.
We'll definitely do that.
Yep. But I went back in and I finished my day and came back the next day and prayed to God that lady never came in again.
Never came back again. And
She
asked
didn't.
For you. Good.
I will never forget her face. So.
Awesome. Well, let's see. It's Easter. It's 10 o'clock. And let's go find us something to eat. What do you think?
It.
All right. Prison out.